I initially did not think anything was wrong. I kind of just chalked it up to like new mom nerves. I just think about like the hours of sleep that Alex and I lost out on. Yeah, I might have overcomplicated some things. Hey, I'm Amber. Welcome back to my channel, or if this is your first time here, thanks for stopping by. Today I'm sharing 5 mistakes that I made during the newborn stage with my son. I don't necessarily like regret any of these except for probably the last one, because mistakes are how you learn, but I thought I would share them so that if you're a new mom or if you're about to be a new mom, you can maybe learn from my mistakes so that you can enjoy the time with your new baby just like a little bit more. The first mistake is avoiding co-sleeping. And I don't mean in a sentimental way like, oh, I wish I would have held my baby more while he slept, because we did hold him for a lot of his naps, like up until the point that we literally couldn't because too many things would wake him up. I decided early on that for night sleeping, I wanted him to sleep in his bassinet for several reasons. I didn't feel super safe about the co-sleeping thing. I really wanted to keep the bed space like a place for just Alex and I. And on top of that, I just know myself, and I knew that I was gonna have a hard time getting like good restful sleep if I had my baby on me or like right next to me. So I told Alex from the beginning, like, I don't want to do that. And it actually turned out that Kai seems to prefer, for the most part, his own space too. Like, he would be very, very restless the times that we tried to lay down and like co-sleep with him at night. He'd be okay for naps for like an hour or two, but any longer than that, he just seemed like he did better in his bassinet or now crib. But there were some times, particularly during sleep regressions, where he was struggling. Like, he would be out cold, and then we would put him down in his bassinet and immediately he would wake up like screaming. And Alex was usually relatively quick to say like, well, I'll just hold him so that we can get some sleep. And I was usually the one, because of everything that I just said, but then also because I was afraid of like creating bad sleep habits, that was like, no, we need to try for a little bit longer to get him to sleep in his bassinet by himself. And in hindsight, that's silly, because if 90% of the time they're sleeping in their bassinet on their own and 10% of the time they sleep with you, that's not gonna be enough to create like a bad habit. Not that co-sleeping is a bad habit, but in our case, since that's not how we wanted him to regularly sleep, I didn't want to create that habit. So usually, because of me, we would end up trying for probably like an extra hour or two sometimes after we already were having a tough time with him to get him to sleep on his own, only to eventually give up and to co-sleep with him anyway. And so I just think about like the hours of sleep that Alex and I lost out on because I felt like I needed to avoid co-sleeping at all costs. So I think next time around, I'd probably be a little more flexible with that, even though I still would prefer any future kids to primarily sleep on their own. But if they're really having a tough time, I will be much quicker to just be like, okay, it's fine. Like, just for a night or 2 or 3, whatever, who cares? The second thing is not doing tummy time sooner. I actually didn't know when we first had my son that you could start doing tummy time from day 1. I don't remember when I thought you were supposed to start, but I definitely didn't think you were supposed to start with like a brand spanking new baby. Even when I was told actually by our lactation consultant that you could start right away, I still didn't want to do it because we'd put him on his tummy and he hated it. And so I just felt kind of like agitated by his crying, and I would be like, no, it's okay, we don't need to do it. Alex was also the one who was like, no, we need to. And he was like, well, let's just start small, like 30 seconds to a minute. So we would put him on his tummy and like set a timer, and I would just be like watching the timer for, for it to end, because I just felt so uneasy. And we would do that a few times a day. And of course, it's one of those things that they don't love, but it is important. And the more you do it, the more they'll get used to it. Nothing bad came from us not doing tummy time right away with him. Like, he hit all of his milestones and everything within a normal amount of time. I don't know if maybe something would have been different, like maybe he would have hit some milestones sooner. The only thing I can think of is that he did have like some tummy issues, and that actually is why the lactation consultant told us to start doing tummy time. So maybe if I would have been a little bit more persistent, like we could have avoided some of those issues, because primarily it was like trapped gas, and tummy time can help them get that out because they like wiggle around a little bit. Really quickly before we get on to the next thing, if you're enjoying this so far and you like kind of crunchy motherhood, healthy living, slow living type videos, please just hit that subscribe button down there. I would love to see you around here more often. The third mistake, I think this is actually a very common one for first-time moms especially, and that is worrying about schedules. And I'm talking like the feeding schedules, the wake windows, and the sleeping schedules. I didn't worry too much about this in the very first month, I think because I was just kind of like in survival mode. But after that, I started to see online all the different articles about getting your baby on a schedule and the importance of schedules. And schedules are important for your baby eventually, but I think newborns are just still adjusting to like being a little human in the world. And so I think a lot of them maybe will benefit from like a loose schedule. I definitely think my son was not ready. Well, no, I know he was not ready. I tried the eat, play, sleep schedule way too soon. It didn't work because he just couldn't stay awake for very long, and he needed more milk than just right after his nap. I tried getting him on some other kind of like feeding schedule to make sure that he was getting a full feed each time and like wasn't doing those snack feeds, and that didn't work out so well because he would just be like grumpy because he wasn't getting enough. I would try keeping him awake for longer periods of time. Like he'd be nursing, he always fell asleep nursing, and I'd be like messing with his hands and like messing with his hair trying to keep him up, and it only ever bought me, I think, like a few extra minutes, but I was like trying to get him within that recommended wake window time. If he took a short nap, I would also spend probably way too much time trying to get him back down to extend the nap so he could get that full hour in. But you know, sometimes babies just take short naps, and that's okay. I knew he was ready to go on a schedule, at least for sleep and being awake, when all of a sudden going to sleep became much harder, because during the newborn phase, he would just fall asleep. Like it didn't really take effort to put him to sleep unless he was uncomfortable because of like stomach issues or something like that. Other than that, he would just nurse and he would fall asleep, or you would just hold him for a little bit and he would just fall asleep for like hours. So there was no need for a schedule. And we didn't really get on much of a feeding schedule until he started solids. We basically just like breastfed on demand up until that point. I feel like I just wasted a lot of time and mental energy worrying about these things when I could have just been going with the flow and it would have been a lot less stressful. The next thing is that I stressed out a lot about going out with Kai. Basically took the first month of his life to just like rest and recover, which I'm glad I did, but after that started to get kind of stir crazy because Alex and I were used to like going on walks, going to get a coffee and occasionally dinner or something like that. Plus we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, which initially was very nice because I could just like walk 5 feet from the bedroom and be in the living room. But towards the end of that month, it started to feel really, really cramped. So I wanted to get out, and we did, but I would get really nervous about him waking up, which in hindsight is silly because I feel like the newborn phase is the easiest time to go out with them because they mostly just sleep, and if they do wake up, they only need a few things to be fed, changed, or held. And that's basically it. Unless you have like a colicky or extra fussy baby, they're not gonna want to get off your lap and walk around, and you're gonna have to like chase them around the restaurant or anything like that. We'd be sitting there, he'd be sleeping in his car seat, and if I noticed him waking up, I would be like, babe, he's waking up. And Alex would be like, calm down, calm down. I don't know why I would panic about that. I don't know. The last thing is not getting help for my postpartum anxiety. This is actually the only one that I do regret, because even though my experience as a new mom and with a newborn, I would say was overall positive, I think it could have been even more enjoyable if I would have gotten help for this. I talked more in depth about this in this video right here about my entire postpartum experience, but I initially did not think anything was wrong. I kind of just chalked it up to like new mom nerves. Even when my sister actually pointed out, like, I think you're experiencing some postpartum anxiety, I didn't think it was as bad as I now realize looking back that it was. I would get really nervous and agitated about like other people, even family, like holding Kai. I would get really bad intrusive thoughts, not intrusive thoughts that I would kind of just like let go, like intrusive thoughts that would agitate me and kind of like change my behavior. Like I knew that it was kind of ridiculous, but I would be panicking on the inside and trying to like look calm on the outside. Part of the problem was that I had just been laid off right before having my son. And so I think like it didn't even cross my mind to say like, I think I need to talk to someone about this and like we're gonna need to spend some money on a therapist. But you cannot put a price on your mental health. Okay, very short video today. I actually don't feel like I made that many mistakes, and I feel like you should never expect yourself to do the newborn phase completely perfect. Like there's an element of making some mistakes and learning from them, because no baby and no unit is exactly the same. So like even if you're a second time mom, what you did with your first, you might try with your second and be like, nope, that's a mistake, that's not gonna work. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. I hope you're having a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.